IMoDD. This is part of our ongoing Unforgettable Dinnerware program. I want to thank the Ann Arbor District Library for partnering with us and hosting this event this evening. I want to make a couple of announcements before we start our program this evening. Fortunately, we have 2 live exhibitions in Ann Arbor right now that you can view in person or through our online catalog at dinnerwaremuseum.org. A perfect pairing of cookbooks and dinnerware is currently on view at the Audubon Room at Hatcher Graduate Library, the University of Michigan, and this is through the end of this month. And travel dining is on view at the Taubman Health Center at the University of Michigan Hospital, and that's through December 3rd. And I hope you have a chance to visit those in person or online. And then a couple of other events I want to mention before I turn this over to our speaker this evening. The culinary historians of Ann Arbor have invited me to speak about 10 years of culinary delights from the International Museum of Dinnerware Design at the downtown Ann Arbor District Library on Sunday, October 9th at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. The event will be live streamed and there will be a recording available later. And the second speaker, we're just doing the first one tonight, but our second speaker of the fall series will be live on Zoom Wednesday, October 12th. That's Christopher McPherson, who will be speaking about living with plastics, the promise of mid-century melamine dinnerware. And this evening, you'll be enjoying the topic of mid-century modern dinnerware presented by Michael E Pratt. I'm not going to tell you much more about it other than you probably know already that Mike Pratt is an avid collector and the author of 3 books on, I don't know if you can see me or my screen, but I'm waving his books at you if you can see me. 3 books on mid-century modern dinnerware that have been published by Schiffer Publishing. Full disclosure, he's a member of our IMoDD Board of Directors. We're very happy about that. And he has so much to share with us this evening. So I'm going to turn it over to Mike. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Margaret. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Hopefully this will work. Can everybody see this full screen?
Yes.
Thanks. All right, I just have to minimize the okay, great. And it looks like I don't have my presenter view now, so we're going to do the best we can. Anyways, I have a lot of slides, and this is going to be a blitz because I think it's probably more interesting to see some of the items than to hear me talk so much. But I've actually changed the title of the talk a little bit to Mid-Century Modern Dinnerware Unpacked, because the slides that I've taken recently, the photos I've taken recently, and taken it from the dishes that are unpacked in my dinnerware dungeon and in the house. Unfortunately, most of it is still in storage. I moved a couple years ago and still haven't been able to unpack everything. So I guess the unpacked is a double entendre as well. So that's my basement. Let me see if we can move this forward. I wanted to start by acknowledging that something that Esther Warner Dendell said in July 2002 to me. She actually wrote this from hospice a month before she passed away. She said, "The response to a beautiful object is what makes life wonderful. Life is great." Esther was larger than life in my eyes. And so have all the people that I've met along the way, designers, pottery manufacturers, pottery workers, and collectors. And you all have enlarged my life a great deal, and I owe a debt of gratitude to you all. This is how my collecting started. I was in an antique mall in rural Indiana, and this plate, a breathless swirl pattern by Stetson, was across the room. Of course, I didn't know anything about China at the time, or dinnerware. I was basically a bull in the china shop. But this spoke to me in no uncertain terms. The farm implements and the black and brown colors within the antique mall where all went into the backdrop, and all I saw across the room was this. And I knew nothing about it. I walked over to it. I flipped it over, said 50 cents. I said I had to own this. It would be only later that I really realized why I had an attraction to this pattern. It was talking to me, not in words, but in a much deeper level that went beyond words. It was something about I am here. I'm free. I can say what I want. It was innovative. It wasn't like the rosies and posies of traditional China. It was something different and something interesting, and it captured my attention. And I tried to find more plates like this and more patterns like this and couldn't. But I found other pieces of dinnerware that spoke to me in a similar manner, and thus my journey began. I want to share a little bit about some of the dinnerware lines that led up to the mid-century. You know, in 1925, Paris had the exhibition where Art Deco in France was being displayed to people from all over the world. And it wasn't very long after that Art Deco modern started to wash ashore in the United States in a much more prominent way. You know, at first, many people, especially in the housewares field, thought that the designs, which were based on Dadaism and Cubism and Surrealism, were kind of monstrosities. And even one museum curator in the 30s said, luckily the Depression has killed this, this style. But I think out of that, the public started to adopt modern, and folks in the housewares industry and the designers started to realize that since the public was beginning to accept it, that actually modern could evolve from that Art Deco in a more refined manner. And instead of just severe geometries, it could be something that's meaningful and functional. So I want to present just briefly, without going into too much detail, because I have a lot of slides to show, just a few patterns that are of interest to me from that period, which I call the leading cusp of mid-century modern dinnerware. The first being the tricorn shape, designed by Don Schreckengost and made by Salem. China, we call it the, but it's really the lip of this dinnerware is a triangle, kind of a circular triangular shape, very innovative for the time. The glaze, which was underglazed, was made from a uranium oxide, meaning it's radioactive. The decoration was mandarin, and it caught on. It was a really interesting and smart shape that that the public adopted. So much so that they actually patented it. And Vincent Broomhall, another big great in the Ohio and West Virginia area, was responsible for creating the hollowware. I'm particularly fond of the sailing pattern developed by Margaret Blumenthal and its simplified design on the well of the shape. Just a beautiful, beautiful piece. I like collecting ephemera associated with dinnerware. It helps with identifying some of this stuff. And you can see here, I've boxed the area which identifies Margaret Blumenthal of the Pratt Institute as creating this particular design. Another shape that I'm particularly fond of is the Manhattan shape by Victor Schreckengost. He was a 1938 Binns medalist. This was manufactured by American Limoges in 1935. A very nice simplified design. Party plate, party plates would become more popularized later in the mid-century with the move post-war to more informal living and socialization, both indoors and outdoors. So a less formal setting. This particular line came in about 8 different patterns, 8 different animals that you could find on this. Simon Slobodkin was a Harvard-trained dentist turned pottery owner, ceramic designer, a pottery salesman, and actually he was really one of the founders, if not the father, of mid-century modern design. Did a lot of really interesting asymmetrical work early on in the 30s. And this Cabot Shaw Potters was actually created as a division of W.S. George just so that he could do some of his designs. And the industry actually accredited him with the reintroduction of the coup shape, which is a rimless shape, like you see here. This was also patented. The only design decoration on this was said to be the concentric circles that were incised into the plate and also into the handles. These were concave. The wear was really light. So this actually worked. This was functional. This particular design I used to call confetti until recently I found out the name is actually carnival. It's a very fun pattern from the 30s and presaged the mid-century modern period. It was patented. So another great design was the Jiffyware line by Schreckengoss from the Limoges China Company. It was heralded as a kind of a hostess accessory line. Casseroles had flat lids, so you could stack them in the refrigerator. Batter boxes, the same. Bean pots also had flat lids. The refrigerator jars were flat on the side, so you could stack them side by side in the refrigerator. The only thing that you couldn't really stack side by side real well would be this batter jug on the left-hand side, which is more or less bulbous. You could stack in the range set the peppers on either side of this obviously used drip jar that contained grease. But it was an interesting line and an interesting concept that was introduced early because space was a big factor in the post-war era. This was obviously pre-war, but they were already thinking about how do we work more efficiently, how do we use smaller services. The servants in the homes were less and less until post-war. It was pretty much a servantless society. Formal dining sets, decreased in size from very large sets to much more manageable sets. And we're beginning to see some of these trends happen in the 1930s. Frederick Lee, who was 2 years earlier than this line, earlier than the swing shape, was responsible for Fiesta. He was a brilliant designer. He was responsible for creating the swing shape, where you see the well of the plate kind of transitions with a graceful curve to the lip and then to the rim. Just a lovely plate design. The Swedish modern style is not a monstrosity, even though it seems like it's based on more or less a cubist kind of theme, but a very beautiful design for a plate and a nice line. Bell Kogan in 1939 predicted pretty much that the sensibilities of the public would change from the less acceptable, what she considered less acceptable early modern forms, which seemed cold, lifeless, and unappealing, to a more heartwarming treatment of modern. She made that prediction, and I pretty much look at the New York World's Fair in 1939 as a milestone marker for the start of the mid-century modern design period. By the way, the mid-century modern design term was pretty much, I think, popularized or invented by Kara Greenberg in her really wonderful book that features a lot of mid-century modern furniture. I think her first edition of that was in the mid-1980s. Another line that's I consider actually in this period a little bit because of its streamlined nature is the Strataware line that was done for Sears and Roebuck and Company. This was a line that Eva Zeisel oversaw. It was created by Universal Potteries. Her student Frances Blood was responsible for enlarging the line based on this refrigerator jar, or this pitcher rather, that she had designed. I mean, I think I can see some elements of Eva in this, like the mechanism on the lid here, this where you kind of push down and the lid opens. Perhaps this downturn handle, some of these graceful curves. This was an interesting line because it incorporated the handle into the body of the ceramic body, which was to minimize breakage, but it was a really nice design feature. And mixing and matching these different colors in one set, really a nice touch. And so I consider this, for my purposes, very collectible, mid-century modern, but it's kind of like on the cusp. This is the 5-piece relish with the quarter plate. And, of course, the TWA Strataware liner, and its futuristic sort of, tomorrow-ish look, sort of became a part of the inspiration, I think, for the back stamp. So let's talk a little bit about mid-century modern. I'm going to wet my whistle first. I really pretty much consider that mid-century modern probably started with Russell Wright's American modern dinnerware that he did and was produced by Steubenville Potteries. The start date when it was introduced to the public is a little bit controversial. I think what I've found is 1939, but there are some authors that will say 1938. Certainly he was working on this in 1937 at least, and possibly earlier. But this is just a marvelous design. The spout grows organically out of the body. The lid is on this really wonderful, unexpected slope. It's in white. It's just an absolutely beautiful, simplistic, almost organic form. This is a rare color, Steubenville blue. You can see almost a zoomorphic kind of shape in this, either bird or fish in the gravy. You can see the coup shape here. This was a very popular line. It was enlarged over 20 years with different colors, different additional items. Ann Kerr says it grossed over $159 million over that time, and it was the most popular selling dinnerware line ever. I think Russell Wright tried to do a double take with his Iroquois Casual that was introduced in 1946. This line also was manufactured over a period of 20 years. I think he was looking for something a little bit less fragile as the earthenware. So this was a highly vitreous, fired at 2,300 degrees Fahrenheit dinnerware line. Many pieces in the line. I'm pretty much a fan of the very early Iroquois, which was thicker and which was a much more imperfect in its glazing. And so they marketed that. I mean, they hadn't really come up with a way to evenly coat this highly non-absorbent ceramic body until much later. But so they marketed it like this is perfection in imperfection, and it really is quite stunning. Over time, Iroquois Casual colors would change almost as the magazines that promoted colors would change almost from year to year. So as an example, in 1956, the predominant color was a pink sherbet. But then by 1961, that switched to a sugar white and a ripe apricot color. I'm very partial to dinnerware that grew up basically in America without a lot of European influence, and very sensitive to the formation of something that we call American design, something that, had its roots totally here. And so one of the lines that's very intriguing to me is Tamac. Tamac is a portmanteau of the two founders' names, Alan Macaulay and Leonard Tate, those two families. So they took Tate and Macaulay and had Tamac. And until I realized that recently, and when I was doing some additional research for this talk, I had been calling it Tamac all these years. So a Tate, I assume Tate and Tamac is the way you should pronounce that. Their line of dinnerware, Freeport dinnerware from 1946, was very popular and lasted for 20 years. It's a very diverse group of characters, and don't let this almost looks like a mishmash fool you. There's some ergonomic features in this, but it's just wildly asymmetrical in some areas. If you look at the tumbler, there are ridges in the tumbler. Your hand fits in those very nicely, and it doesn't slip out because of that. There's some indentations on the salt and pepper. It's really quite interesting line and captures the attention. Actually, it started post-war. The GI Bill helped fund some new businesses, and they wanted to create Tate and Macaulay a party plate. So you could socialize and eat at the same time. We talked about the Manhattan party plate. So this is called the one-hander. It's the first thing that you can see at the bottom of this brochure. Unfortunately, I don't have one unpacked, so I have to show this to you this way. The cup is really interesting in that it doesn't really have a handle. It has a finger tunnel. And Macaulay, who was the creative, who was responsible for designing this, was looking at a lump of clay and said to himself, how do I create a cup out of this? He grabbed the clay with one hand. His thumb naturally went deep into the clay, and that's how the finger tunnel was born on this cup. It's really quite a nice design. Again, it was a very large set. You can see all the pieces in it in a bunch of different colors. Another line out of the heartland was Exarban, a very short-lived line from 1946 to 1948. From Nebraska. Exarban is Nebraska spelled backwards. It was designed by Robert C. Peterson, who was also president of the company. It was made out of a clay, I think clay that was from the Endicott Brick Company, I believe. And it featured squares and rectangles and these nice little feet. I'm very partial to feet, so I have to show you these. Again, it was a very fragile dinnerware line, but I loved it because it was all American. And now we get to Castleton, China from 1946. This was designed for people who could afford a more formal dinnerware set. It was referred to initially as the Zeisel shape, and Eva Zeisel was responsible. It was introduced in April of 1946 by the Museum of Modern Art. And this is the classic museum white coffee pot. This handleless creamer is particularly a fascinating and wonderful shape. The spout, similar to American Modern, but in a different way, grows organically out of the body. And when you grab the creamer, it's almost like an experience of where you become part of the process of pouring. It's a very much of an experience. I love the way Eva tends to inset her lids inside of the bowl, and then in this case it's the sugar bowl. The hot water bottle with a handle, obviously you need a handle for a hot water bottle. The teacup and saucer is pretty dramatic and theatric. The well of the saucer rises up to meet a narrow foot on the cup, as if the cup is on a stage. The original cup and saucer had a handle. The cup had a handle that was downturned, and it was absolutely gorgeous. Unfortunately, very few of those made it into production. I think the change was probably modified by the company itself. I don't think Eva made this like this. It's probably a practical matter. I don't know. Again, the inset lid and the covered casserole. I think Eva put the fun back into function with her Town and Country that she designed for Red Wing Potteries in 1947. I don't think you're going to find a shape like this in the Silver Vaults in London. This is a very unique and innovative and fun shape, almost kind of like a circus creature. The flat lid, she made both a right and left-hand spoon that was ceramic on one end and wood turned on the other end. Just a really interesting and innovative design. She was always considering ergonomics, I think, and how you interacted with the pieces. So with the syrup on the left and the mixing bowl on the right, your hand slips almost naturally under the lip and the rim, and once again, you can become part of the pouring process. Her playfulness can be seen in the asymmetry. Her ergonomics can be seen in the design of the tab here that's on the lid, where the thumb or the fingers can fit neatly in it. Once again, this is almost zoomorphic, almost like the opening of a bird's mouth. You have to grab the handle to pour. You become part of the pouring experience. The plate, you can see, is asymmetrical, both on a horizontal plane, but it's also asymmetrical on a vertical plane. This side, this rim here is higher than this rim over here. Eva was as concerned about positive space as she was negative space and the relationship of one piece to another, as you can see in this almost mother-daughter relationship between the salt and pepper shakers. Beautiful, organic design. Once again, you can see ergonomics in the handle, where the heel of the hand can actually fit nicely in the casserole handle while you're grasping the object. Again, some vertical asymmetry, and the thumb can fit nicely into the tab. Finger can fit nicely in this handle on the Marmite. This is metallic brown, a very attractive color sought out by collectors. You can see in the comma bowls that these are really kind of a fun organic shape, but they also have purpose because you can grab these at one end. They act almost like a handle. And you can see the handle also in this large platter. You can see the asymmetry in the cereal bowl and also in this saucer in which the cereal bowl is sitting on. We mentioned Esther Warner Dendell earlier in the very beginning. Denoir Ceramics, which also was a portmanteau of Dendell and Warner. So Joe Dendell was responsible for the shapes in the Bantu line of dinnerware, the only line of dinnerware that was created for Denoir Ceramics, and Esther Warner Dendell, the beautiful glazes that reflected her surroundings in Liberia. She was on a plantation of the Firestone rubber plantation in the 1940s, where she met Joe Dendell. She worked with the indigenous people. She was introduced not only to the chieftain of the indigenous people, but Bola, the wife of the chieftain. She had an egg in her possession, and she had no gifts really to give. She gave the egg. Bola was in awe that she would give such a gift that meant so much. It was almost a spiritual gift to them. It's a symbol of the creation of life, and eggs are used almost for medicinally in the culture. So when Esther and Joe decided to create their line of dinnerware, they created it based on the egg shape. You can see this not only in the body of the jugs, but also in the lovely sloping lid, and in the covered butter dish. If you look carefully, you can see some ergonomic features in these pieces as well. This is a brochure. By 1949, some really wild decals were being created. There was a Syracuse National Exhibition that was promoting, pattern design for dinnerware. And Anton Refrigerate won third place for his, what I'm calling Design 88, because I don't know the name for it. Commercial Decal bought it up, and Patent City Pottery put it on its dinnerware in 1949. I think this is the Greenbrier shape. This is actually, Anton Refrigerate was a WPA artist, and he did a lot of murals. I mean, I used to live in Plainfield, New Jersey. You walk in the post office there, and this is just an amazing mural by Anton Refrigerate there. And he did murals all over the place, but he did also do some decals. This is just a crazy decal on here, and I just kind of love its modernity. And it's the same decal. You can almost see his WPA work though in this bird. Reminds me of it. This is called calligraphy. At least I had called it calligraphy because the trades had called it calligraphy for almost 6 months until December of 1949, when the actual Paden City Pottery advertisement came out. And I believe this is probably known now as Design 44, but really a really interesting decal. I'd like to mention somebody who's not very often thought of in terms of dinnerware. Francis Von Turi, he was out of Perth Amboy, New Jersey, 5th generation Hungarian potter, well known in ceramic circles, in 1962 Binns medalist. And this is, he's responsible for glazes and decorations and the bodies of most all the pieces. But this is almost kind of an impressionist look. This is a creamer that I found designed by him. At his peak, he was putting out, like in 1950, about 15,000 pieces, probably mostly vases annually. One of my favorite lines of dinnerware that I use every day is Sterling China by Russell Wright. This was introduced in 1949 to the public, also known as Russell Wright vitrified china. It was mainly for commercial institutional use. And you can see this is my kitchen with a small portion of our sterling china that we have. And the ashtrays we use now, kind of double purpose, multi-purpose, we use them as utensil rests or spoon rests. I was taken a long time ago by the shape of this plate. Before I even collected Russell Wright, I said to myself, if I ever collect Russell Wright, I'm going to definitely be collecting sterling, because I just love the transition from the well of the plate into the lip and to the rim. This is the coffee pot. The coffee pot that they used institutionally. This was called a coffee bottle, and that was a single cup of coffee there. This is a kind of a rare piece. It's the mug. It wasn't in the original line, but you can find some of these pieces around rarely. Just really lovely pinch lid. You can see this brochure in Ann Kerr's book in the front, but you rarely see this part of the brochure anywhere. So that's how they marketed it. Ben Seibel was another great industrial. Most of these people I've mentioned were industrial designers. They don't just collect or just create dinnerware designs. But Ben said, imperfection can be interesting. And I'd have to agree with him wholeheartedly. But he said the public is timid. And the reason I'm saying that is because there's a line that he created in 1950 that's really, really rare, and we don't know much about it, but I just wanted to show it to you because it's kind of like infusing modern into a country modern kind of theme. So anyways, this looks like it's handmade, and it's marked in pen on the bottom or some kind of marker on the bottom, handwritten, Ben Seibel D. Murray. I'd like to know more about that. And something else, another line I'd like to know a lot more about is this Heartland creation from early 1950s by Gorbit Bowman. And I believe it's called Aeromodern. The only reason I believe it's called Aeromodern is because I found this postcard dated 1951 on the back that shows these shapes, and I know them to be Gorbit Bowman shapes. This is the coffee pot. It's, again, it conjures up a zoomorphic kind of almost like an elephant in shape if you look at it in different perspectives. The very organic looking cup and saucer. This is if you wanted to walk around and carry a cigarette and drink your coffee at the same time. Just an interesting shape. You probably can see some of the zoomorphism in the salt and pepper. And I'm sorry I don't have all of it unpacked, or else I would show you some of the other wonderful shapes in the line. But again, a marvelous creation that came out of the heartland that doesn't appear to me to have any European influence at all. You know, mid-century modern design in the housewares industry pretty much peaked at 1950. And after that, you can see the preferences of young marrieds may have dropped a little bit in terms of modern. So by 1951, according to this panel research survey, modern was about 46% of the preference and traditional was still the majority. Of the modern, Russell Wright brand was, and he was a brand, I mean, and marketed as such, captured the imagination and the pocket of most young marrieds. The majority of the young families actually owned 2 sets of dinnerware. They had 8 and 12 piece place settings. And oftentimes the largest part of their dinnerware was actually a gift. I don't know how many times I purchased Franciscan Starburst from families that said this was our anniversary gift. I have an interest in the glassware as well, and I'm particularly fond of Rice Brothers glassware that was created by Eva Zeisel and distributed by Sunglow Studios in 1952. I'm sorry I don't have more to show you, but the shapes are absolutely amazing. It's a leaded glass and colorful. This is a catalog that shows a number of the different shapes that are created by Eva Zeisel. Unfortunately, this begs more questions than it answers, especially with this particular glass here. I doubt if that was an Eva Zeisel design, but I don't know for sure. You know, Universal Potteries was visited by Russell Wright in the 50s, and he wanted to do a dinnerware line with them, but they didn't align with his persona real well. So they decided to create a dinnerware line that was an answer, more or less an answer to Russell Wright's visit. And it was the Vogue shape. It's a kind of an asymmetrical shape. This was designed in 1952. And this harkens back to actually 1935. This is a song that was written then, Red Sails in the Sunset. So it's kind of an Art Deco look. This is the Melody series. It's really quite an interesting line, and I wish I had more pieces to show you. In 1952, Ben Seibel was revisiting his infusion of modern into country style dinnerware. And this line by Falstaff is called Country Time. Here you see a swinging samovar. This is a really lovely modern design. It doesn't remind me of anything country. Ben had a particularly love for ceramic on ceramic. So this lid actually moved up on this joint here. It's kind of an awkward thing. And I don't imagine many of these survive. This is in a glaze that is rarely found, teal blue. And this, in some of their brochures, they show mixing and matching of the colors, which is kind of nice. Other pieces in the line. A lot of the pieces in the line actually were staged by lovely metal stands. It came in 3 different finishes, nickel, copper, and brass, I think. And here are some other pieces in the line. Aztec blue crazed a lot. It didn't last very long, so it's a pretty rare glaze. This meat board would have had an oak insert with metal spikes, and this cheese and relish would also have a wood insert here. And here's the salt and pepper. You know, Edgar Kaufman, who was the head of the Good Design exhibition at MoMA from 1950 to 1955, faced a little bit of controversy because most everything that was in the show was modern design, and picked in the process of picking it, maybe was always not as transparent to people as they'd like, because their things weren't showing up in it. And so he was asked in an ID interview why there was no traditional design in the Good Design program. And he said there is excellent traditional design, but it was made in the days when it was modern. There's no good reproduction traditional design. I thought that was a really interesting quote, and so that's why I wanted to share it with you. In 1952, Shenango, China put out this interesting pattern, which actually, this mobile, obviously reprises the Calder kind of mobile from the early 30s. But it was created for the Kellogg Center, I think, in Michigan, University of Michigan. I think it was Michigan State, probably. Kind of fun. On the continental shape for Shenango, which was a commercial dinnerware shape, which they considered to be modern. These are the shapes. Take a look at this creamer here. Because here you can see, I also collect ephemera related to production. And this showed where the spray, in other words, the decoration, was supposed to be on the piece. Another pattern from 1953, 1954, also on the continental shape, Well of the Sea, well known to people who follow IMoDD, because Margaret has done a presentation on Well of the Sea. It's a great pattern, adapted by Paul Cook from a design that was in the Sherman Hotels in Chicago. Again, some of the sprays that were used in the actual process. They numbered them. Louis Sullivan said that form follows function. And Eva said that many forms follow function. And Ben Seibel said the design itself is a function. In other words, he felt that aesthetics was really important. And so we're looking at dinnerware next, called Raymore Modern Stoneware, where I think that is so very true, from 1952. This is a rarely found chartreuse glaze. Notice how the handles are incorporated into the plate, and kind of like a fish scale sort of representation shape. It was really a theatrical line, and to heighten the theatrics, Gilly created a line called Gilly Informal, which matched the Raymore stoneware to a number of different, maybe 20 or 25 different stands. And you can see some of the stands here, but there were much more dramatic ones, which I would love to own if I ever ran across them. Here's the Robin's Egg Blue, which is really kind of a late glaze that was introduced in 1954. A little closer look. The glazes are actually just spectacular. This collectors call this the frog skin glaze. It's an avocado glaze. It's model. It's just absolutely gorgeous. Here Ben's playing again with ceramic on ceramic. You could put your thumb on this, lift it up. Doesn't work really well. That's why many lids just are not found anymore. The butter dish, and this is actually a casserole warmer. So it sits on top of another casserole. You can take the lid off and put this on, and there you have it. It's a massive piece. Ben said that dissimilar shapes contribute a great deal of excitement and eye appeal. And you certainly can see that in this line. This is the flower or fruit basket. Oh, the bun warmer is just a tremendous piece. You think the lid's going to slip off, but it doesn't. It has these wonderful curved concave built-in handles. The cheese plate and relish plate. And again, ceramic on ceramic. Unfortunately, the weight of the liquid in these pots oftentimes was enough to break these lugs off, but what a beautiful and dramatic piece. It swung on the ceramic stand. There were also metal stands that could be found. Here's an experimental glaze and a shape in the mug, a long handle mug shape in the line. And there was also glassware that accompanied the line made by Morgantown, hand blown. If you look really closely here, you can see that plate shape reproduced in the texture. Ben loved texture in his objects, and you can see it also in this next line that we're going to look at, Raymore Contemporary. Also, he was a very busy man in 1953, and you can see it in his esgraffito kind of rippling wave pattern that's etched into the mold of the dinnerware. Take a note of these handles because they're going to reappear again in the next set of things we see. But here again, ceramic on ceramic. This slides over the opening like this, and this is another bun warmer. Here's a brochure that shows some of the pieces in the line. But I remember the handles I was telling you about. He also used that design feature in Raymore Connoisseur, a glassware that I just absolutely love by Duncan Miller Company, again from 1953. And I never liked crackle glass, but the way he has brought this into modernity is just amazing, and uses it as a texture. Remember those handles I was showing you in Kentucky? Here they are. Was this line meant to accessorize Raymour Contempora? I don't know. It's never been said, but it sure seems like it. This is the 14-inch celery that's in there. It came in also in a crystal color. Also available in this kind of mocha brown color. I think there was like 5 different shapes, sizes of glasses that could be found. This kind of futuristic saucer-looking candlestick came in singles, triples, and quintuples with these dramatic metal stands plated in cadmium. The very rare crystal bowl, punch bowl. This ladle did not come with the line that I'm aware of. It was an addition. You had to buy it separately. But the cadmium stand says it all. It's just sets it off in a tremendous way. It's just a beautiful, beautiful line. Like I said, he was busy, and he was probably around this time also. Other people may know a date for this, but I don't yet. He created this kind of informal patio or tableware, buffetware. Could be used indoors or outdoors, but it did come with some of them pieces came with and without electric warming units attached to them. So this is the Gilly line called Townhouse China, and it came in, like I said, 2 different colors, white and blue, and also there were different kinds of knobs. So we still need to learn a lot more about this particular line. This is the stirrer that came with it, chrome plated with a bronze tip for this martini jug, a salad bowl with the utensils, relish, coffee urn, covered casserole, cruets. Okay, switching gears, just to mention a Stangl line that's pretty much a lot of fun is the Lyric line in black and white, designed by, the pattern was designed by Kay Hackett, somebody I actually met in a flea market in Lambertville, New Jersey, and I got a chance to talk to her on a couple of occasions that way. The design was etched into the line here, into the ceramic body, and then painted by an artist, and typically initialed on the bottom by the artist. These shapes, the casual shapes, were designed by Ed Pettingill, who was a Blanco glass designer during the 50s. Some other rarely seen pieces like the cigarette box, and these colorways almost never seen. And the brochure is really hard to find as well. I wanted to mention something about another line that actually was a descendant of Interplay. There's a lot of controversy about who designed Interplay. I suspect that it was designed by actually Russell Wright, but he did not want to take personal credit for it. But be that as it may, I only have Carrere Modern to show you today. This was designed by the quote unquote design department of Iroquois. It featured this almost Pollock-esque decoration, spray decoration of either gold or charcoal on white, or white on charcoal. And so I really, you hear some of the pieces in the line. We could spend like a half an hour talking about why I see a Russell Wright's influence in this line, but we're not going to go there. Whoops, got to go back. Let's see. But I do have an interest in, one-offs or, rare decorations. And this is one that I've not found mentioned anywhere, and you rarely see it out in the wild. Eva created the Tomorrow's Classic in 1952. It was created by Hall China. I'm particularly fond of this pattern designed by John Carlos. It's called Studio 10. No overview of mid-century modern would be complete without looking at Metlock's pottery. The shapes, some of the crazy shapes, lovely crazy shapes, designed by Frank Irwin, the freeform shape, and some of the patterns by Robert Allen, Melvin Shaw. Richard Chandler, who is also an assistant modeler, rarely gets any credit, but also should be mentioned. This is California Contempora, a matte glaze on a circular body, and mobile and freeform, which are glossy glazes on a rounded square body. And if you notice, the coasters were all rounded squares. This was patented design. And here's some of the shapes in the line. I'm mad for this casserole and the handle. And the cigarette box that, again, has a vertical variation in height from one end to the other, and the jawbone. And the difference in handles in the same line. You know, remember what Ben said about diverse shapes in the same line, they create interest. And here are the the tall coffee pots. And the rare mobile butter dish, probably only seen 5 of those over the years. Before we knew this was the twin vegetable, we used to call it the chip and dip. This is the juice glass, serves as the stopper in the beverage server. And this is the pattern on actually a shoreline shape in this picture. It's probably a one-off. And the rarely found brochure associated with California Freeform. Notice it says designed under the art direction of Allen and Shaw. You know, Gladding McBean created a line called Modern Americana, more commonly known as the eclipse shape and starburst pattern. George James responsible for the eclipse shape, Mary Brown for the starburst pattern. This is one of those lines where really, you know, sometimes you think that a shape is best showed in a white, in a pure white without any decal because it emphasizes the shape. But in this case, I think most advanced collectors of mid-century modern would agree that this decoration actually enhances the shape. So the speckled background, the starburst on it, is a lot more compelling than, in my mind and estimation, than the rare form of all-white eclipse. And here's a rarely seen brochure catalog page out of a Franciscan catalog brochure catalog that I own. I'm very fond of Michael Lax's work and especially his work for Duncan Miller in 1954. This is the festive line. Fortunately, I'm missing the wood lid here. Just a wonderful and futuristic looking thing. The candlesticks also can be flipped over and be multi-purpose flower vases. Missing the stand, the beautiful wooden stand. So, but look at the optical effect that it has in the light. It's just amazing. You know, Russell Wright was always thinking about his way to leverage technology, and he wanted to do a copper etched design that was underglazed for a very long time. And so I think that was what he tried to do here. This is that technique on this line that was from 1955, a limited edition line, rarely found. It's called nasturtium. It was augmented with regular casual shapes, but he created a number of really interesting shapes to go with this line. And this is a prototype teapot in white, and you can see the number of the spray, where it's supposed to be, the placement of where it's supposed to be. I love the shape with the flat lid. And these came along with when I bought the other pieces, so I really don't know if they actually belong to the line or not. Victor Schreckengoss created this dripless cup and saucer in the primitive pattern in 1955. It was supposed to be marketed. It was marketed to the bachelor and also patented. And really interesting footed bowls and footed cups, footed everything. This is a blueprint of what I believe is the same bowl. They call it some conversational vegetable. The feet don't look exactly the same, but it's pretty much the same shape. Here's the cruet set, the covered sugar. I have a friend that calls this a flying pig, the teapot. Sorry, I don't have one to show you right now. You know, Russell Wright said in 1949 that there's nothing that can be done with, there's no telling what can be done with pottery. And he was thinking about, wouldn't it be cool if you could have the effect of satin or a delicate as egg matte finish. 7 years later, what do we have but the Esquire line, matte finish. Absolutely breathtaking. I just absolutely love this grass pattern, its simplicity, the curve of the lid, the elongation of the body, the gracefulness of the handle that's very balanced. I love the color, the fact that it's a different design on the other side. The deep compote is equally moving. Also in a matte glaze, this particular pattern called Equations, I've attributed the abstract to Erwin Kalla because the back stamp says KA, and Kalla was working at that time or in that general time for Knowles. Again, another line of dinnerware that I'm absolutely mad about is the Alfred Stoneware buffetware from 1956 that was designed the shapes were designed by Sergio Strologo. I believe most advanced collectors are not too fond of florals, but florals like on Botanica that occurred with Esquire, and this particular floral, these botanicals on Alfred Stoneware are amazing. And we believe that they were strongly influenced by Feng Chao, who was the head designer there at Glidden, along with Glidden Parker. So the handles are made out of oak. The salad bowl, a meat samovar, bean pot, individual bean pot. This is a spaghetti server. So the spaghetti on one side and the tomato sauce on the other. This is the postcard that I found with the information on it about the line. And a piece that goes with the line, may go with the line or may not go with the line, but we have not identified it yet. I found this in a Pennsylvania antique mall, and when I saw it, the futuristic shapes of it and the deep viridian glaze, I just fell in love. It's just amazing. I wish I knew more about who actually designed that piece. Maybe Margaret can help me with that. This is the matrix glaze, and this teapot's designed by Feng Chao. Vernon Kilns did some wonderful mid-century modern pieces for the everyday man. These are called Tickle Pink Heavenly Days. I don't have any to show you in that yet, that's unpacked yet, but I am particularly fond of this Distant Dot underglaze kind of hand-done pattern. And there are some of the pieces in the line. In 57, Metlock's Potteries introduced some more, these being Hostess accessories and Art Treasures, of the World line as well. And you can see here, I think Alan was responsible for the mosaics here, and Helen McIntosh was responsible for the decorations of the fish and the pineapple. I will show you in just a second the fish. Erwin Kalla said, the most important thing we can attain in life is a beautiful place to live. Well, I don't know if that's the only thing, but that was his point of view. And he certainly did create an amazing line with Casual Craft in 1958. It was designed for outdoors or indoors, for patio service, buffet service. I love the mixing and matching of the colors here. The bamboo handle, you can see that this little knob that sticks out on the side here helps you with the pouring of a shape that I've not been able to identify, and the covered casserole, amazing, and a color that I've not been able to locate in brochures, all white. Erwin Kalla was also a modernist sculptor, went on to be an entrepreneur in paper goods. No review of mid-century modern dinnerware is complete without talking about Charles Murphy. He went to the Cleveland School of Art, just like Don Schreckengost. And you can see some of his early work in Stetson, China, when he was there for about 5 years, from 1949, probably, or 4 years maybe, from 1949 to 1953. He created a line called Tiffany, which had this amazing ribbon-like handle that was very delicate for a Stetson. and his influence can be seen in Alf Dubie's work after Stetson. But in 1963, you can almost see his, some of that twisty ribbon-like effect here in this cylinder shape. And this is the Pepe decoration. It's an amazing line. I just love it. Pepe. Also, Charles Murphy was responsible for the contemporary shape and the Futura shape. And here's the spruce pieces in that line. These are pots with attitude. I mean, seriously. Northern Lights on the left, Crazy Rhythm on the right. And some of the shapes in the Futura line. Hall China created kitchenware shapes that were designed by Eva Zeisel. The refrigerator jar is perhaps one of the best known in the line. Kind of a free-form shape. I like the tritone decoration, although Eva doesn't necessarily take credit for it. I think Thompson at Hall China said that she oversaw it or had some kind of influence in it. Sovereign Potters, line by Russell and Mary Wright, or Mary and Russell Wright, was said by Ann Kerr to be kind of possibly a failed Knowles line that was manufactured in Canada. But I'm absolutely in love with the shape of the lids and also the creamer. Erwin Kalla created this, where he mixed and matched an anodized aluminum lid with a ceramic body in this Castleton Everyday China. This is a transitional shape, again, under the glaze, hand-done lollipop tree. Just a beautiful design from 1957, I believe, some of the pieces in the line. And finally, in the mid-century modern period, again, one of my favorite dinnerware lines. If I had a whole set of it, I would try to find a way to eat off of it without ruining the finish. This is an enormous piece. Again, notice the lid, how it's inset. This is just a large footed tureen in a lovely ox blood color. And this in a gold color. The shapes. Eva Zeisel's characteristic belly button shows up in the plates. Just a lovely, lovely line. On the trailing cusp, and to end things up here, and I'm just going to go through this very quickly, Michael Lax. Well, actually, before we get to that, the Durable Dish Company created a line. This was two art patrons, I think, in Pennsylvania, by the name of Cron and Sabol. They were wives of physicians in Pennsylvania. Created a small company that created this dinner service with a Roy Lichtenstein pattern in black and white, and created by the Jackson China Company. They called themselves the Durable Dish Company in 1966. And, it's not exactly, it's more pop art than it is mid-century modern, but, I kind of like it. And I think it's on the trailing cusp of mid-century modern design, as are Primaries and Dining Plus by Michael Lax, done in 68 and 69. This is the Super Bowl. And when I spoke with Alon Plocker, who was one of the I believe, vice presidents at the company, he was surprised when I told him I actually own one, because he said many of them actually collapsed. You kind of had to create them, you had to put ceramic on ceramic, and they didn't all come out. This would actually swivel on this base. The cream, the sugar, salt and pepper in black and white. The cruets that kind of face-to-face can dance with each other, wooden stoppers. And then also the stacking dinnerware line. Scott Vermillion said in his inscription of this book, and by the way, I recommend this book, Eva Zeisel, Life, Design, and Beauty. He said, may your life be filled with beauty. And that's my benediction today for all of you. So with that, my talk ends.
Thank you very much, Mike. I don't know what to say. I've learned so much. I've been taking notes here. So probably everybody has. I don't know if we have time for questions and answers. I think we'd have to make sure the library is going to let us do that. But I think people can write notes in the chat if they have a question, or maybe they can be.
If they don't turn us off, I'm willing to hang around and answer questions.
Okay, let's go for it. So I don't think we have questions yet. So I think people could, if we can see people on video, they could raise their hands. Anyway, I loved it, Mike. I loved it. I'm just dying of envy of all the, not only your knowledge and all of that, but just the wonderful objects. Just incredible.
Rolf, you have to unmute yourself. Is he able to unmute himself?
Okay, we have a question, a couple of questions coming in through the chat.
Okay.
Yep, go ahead.
Achilles? Oh, whoever.
Concerning the GayFad tumblers and juice glasses with the starburst pattern, do you know if the two pictures which came with the two sets were the same picture or two different sizes?
I don't know the answer to that. It was obviously probably not a, it was kind of like what we call a go along, but I don't know about the sets. I actually have those. I only have the picture in one side, so I'm not really aware of the other sides. Sorry, I don't have an answer for you.
Scott Hamblin is on this thing.
You may know the answer, Scott.
Yeah, Scott Hamblin, are you there? Because he might answer that. If it's GayFad, he knows about it.
Well, that one's still, I guess the jury's kind of still out, but it's been my understanding for a while that it's a total coincidence. It wasn't a true go along. So I don't know when they came out, when it coincided date wise, but there you have it.
Huh. Thank you.
So we have another question in the chat, which is maybe more of a technical question. What product do you recommend for getting utensil scratches or getting removing utensil scratches?
I use Simichrome.
Scratch easily. Bartender's friend?
No, because if there's an abrasive in it, it could affect the surface. I personally use Simichrome.
Okay. Thank
Okay.
you. That's a good question. People ask that a lot.
Oh, here's a good question. And I think a lot of us are wondering this. Have you made any plans for the future of your collection?
Yes, but those are not to be announced publicly.
I want to know when you'll have it all unpacked.
Yeah, that's a good question, because I was unpacking things with with newspaper that said, early 1990s.
Great.
Yeah, and there were some things that I had purchased that were never unpacked. So I still, it's a shame. I need a bigger house, unfortunately.
Didn't you just get a bigger house?
It's not big enough. Somebody wrote in the chat, I'm curious as to where you place the Russell Wright Bauer line, and writes Japanese lines in the context of mid-century modern designs. Mid-century modern, love them. Absolutely. They're amazing. All of his work, the Japanese Yamamoto's lines are just amazing. And the Bauer lines. What are my top, Brad, what are my top 3 favorite lines? You would have to ask me that. Put me on the spot. I absolutely adore, in terms of showing, aesthetics, not necessarily in terms of practicality. I think, Eva Zeisel's High Fashion is just an amazing line. I really love the Alfred Stoneware line by Sergio Strologo. Unfortunately, it crazed, and means that it's not necessarily as utilitarian these days, but it certainly is a real beautiful line. In terms of everyday use, I love Sterling. It's plain, but it's very practical. I like it. But there's, I'm going to get off this call and then I'm going to think of like 10 or 20 more lines that I really like. So
We have more questions or should we?
I don't know about Aldo Landi. This is one thing, I am always learning. I am a perpetual student when it comes to this. And to answer your question, I mean, this would be as interesting a thing for me to find out David Carlson as anything else. This is one of the things that really I enjoy about collecting as much as anything. I enjoy turning a page in a vintage journal and learning something new on that page almost as much as I enjoy collecting the dinnerware. I love the history about it and I love these details, and I would like to find out an answer for you about that if I ever did. So, ever could find an answer for you. Maybe when I retire, I'll be able to get back into doing some really serious research in some journals.
Another question came in through the chat, but before, I think I'm looking forward to your retirement when you get into it. The question is, I received some Eva Zeisel plates that I was told were museum white, but they have no markings. How would you know for sure?
Well, you kind of have to look at the shape and you can find the coffee. Unfortunately, the coffee pot that I showed you there wasn't the one that had the lyric mark on the back. My one that has the lyric on the back stamp on the back is still packed. So, we do find a lot of Castleton Museum white that isn't marked. There's a question as to whether or not that was what was sold in the store, because, a lot of it looks perfect, so you really can't call it a second. So, yeah, that I think that you pretty much have to take one with the lyric on the back and put it right next to the plate and see. There was also a line that was created after that was augmented by Irwin Kalla that can be confused with Castleton. So it's really a good question.
I don't know if you can hear me. I'm trying to unmute.
Yes.
You're unmuted, Rolf.
Oh, thank you. I'm holding down something here. Thank you very much. This was a fascinating discussion on mid-century. Some of the shapes, though, the forms, I collect German, Hungarian, and Czech ceramics, specifically 1928 to 38. And some of the shapes are very familiar. The Schreckengoss shape, the triangular ones, for example. Karsten did a whole set of triangular dinner plates and serving plates and the like. And I have quite a number of these in my collection. And as you might see, there's like 50 pieces behind me, but there's lots more, and they're all in storage. But like yours. The designers would, even though it, we would like to think that it's all design came straight out of their head, would actually travel to Europe to get design ideas. I would like to think that they aren't exact copies, but there's no question that you can find influences, European influences in a lot of dinnerware. I love this interaction between Europe and the U.S. in the 1930s, specifically Germany and the U.S., because Germany was under such rigorous restrictions in its ceramic production after 1936. It was a degenerate art form.
I think that sounds like make a great webinar for the future, don't you, Margaret?
I think Rolf would do that for us, wouldn't you, Rolf?
Sure. It has constructivist patterns on degenerate forms, and the companies were banned from making them.
If I didn't just collect American dinnerware, manufactured dinnerware for the most part, I would probably be collecting that. That kind of design interests me as well. Scott Hamblin has written a direct message to me. He's asked, can I talk a minute about McNichols Stonewall and Slovakian? Sure. The McNichols china, it would be best if I was able to show you some of this china. Many of the shapes are are zoomorphic. They're based on kind of an abstracted shape of a bird. They have the dinnerware has a very interesting texture to it, almost a burlappy feel to it. And it was asymmetrical. It's a great line, well known that Simon Slobodkin designed it. And it was also, it looks very contemporary. It wore like nails so that, it never crazed and almost never broke. And it's a really interesting line. And I've unfortunately not unpacked any of it. And I know Brad Hissing has some of it in pink, right, Brad? Wherever you are, which is a color I don't have it in. But anyways.
So I have a few more questions on the chat here. One is, any suggestions where to find out more about Tamac?
So I'm going to correct you because I just learned how to pronounce it. I think it's going to be pronounced Tamac because the Tate. So I really would. I mean, there are accounts about Tamac in some books, but they're very limited. Prior to doing this presentation, the most information I found was actually through a search on newspapers.com where I found a really nice article about Tamac. There isn't really a lot known. I really would love to know when the glazes were introduced, when the shapes were introduced, and a whole lot more myself. So this is one of those areas of research that I would be, just mad to pursue myself.
Another question. There seems to be many mid-century, American mid-century companies. Why are so few producing today?
Well, Bill, you are probably in the best space to answer that question. But, in 1958 and 57, there was an economic downturn, and dinnerware was buying dinnerware is a competitive sort of process, and foreign folks were manufacturing dinnerware and sending it into the United States much more cheaply. A lot of companies went out of business with that economic downturn. Some of the dinnerware that couldn't be shipped over from foreign countries, like the commercial dinnerware, those were more likely to survive. Unfortunately, companies, some of the companies that we really appreciated in that line of commercial dinnerware, for instance, like Sterling, have gone out of business as well. Grateful for the fact that Homer Laughlin and also Heath Ceramics are still in business. I think Peter Potts is still in business. And I'm sure there are others. Bill, could you expand on that and also answer that question? Because I know you know a lot about that.
I think you explained it pretty well. A lot of the dinnerware companies in the United States, starting around 1959, 1960, started going out of business because of competition from overseas. And there's just a few left, as you said.
It was good design was looked as the weapon against all of that. And you would frequently read in the trade journals about how it was so important to use good design to be competitive.
And I have one final question. I think we're wearing out our welcome with the library.
Okay.
Final question from Antai. Do you have any thoughts about melamine Melmac dinnerware and how it fits into the mid-century modern dinnerware category?
I would say stay tuned and listen to Christopher McPherson's presentation. I think you will enjoy it. I actually was going to show you a piece of Fortiflex, a picture of Fortiflex that was really polyethylene and not melamine. That's very, very, very dramatically mid-century modern. But he'll tell you more about that and answer your question, Antai.
All right, well, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for attending. Thank you very much, Mike. It was fabulous. And we will see you in a month or sometime in between. Good night, everybody.
Good night.